Okay. Once again, good morning, everyone. So today we are going to talk about the theory of virtual machines. Okay. So we need to understand couple of basic things before we get into the actual topics because for you cloud is new, right? So considering that, I wanted to give you some background so that you can correlate whenever I'm using some words. Okay. So here couple of terminologies are there with respect to the server only. I might use different words during our conversation. Okay. So first and foremost thing you need to understand what is a server. So most of you already know server means it is also a computer type, but we will have the server operating system inside it. Either it can be a Windows server or a Linux server or whatever it is. So basically server means you will always serve some services or some application inside that. So client means the client is also a computer who will have the client operating system installed in it, maybe Windows 10 or Windows 11, and he always consumes some application. Whatever is hosted in the server, he will just access using client. That is the client. Okay. So sometimes we may use host also. Like host, there is another concept called host. When I say host, it is anything, either it is a client computer or it can be a server computer or it can be any network resource for that matter. If it is available over the network, so we'll call it as host. You can use a generic word called host. Host means it can be a network resource. Then when we talk about the cloud and virtualization and all, right, predominantly we would use a word called VM. So this VM is nothing but virtual machine. Okay. So the virtual machine can have whatever operating system in it. It can be a server operating system like Windows Server 2016, 19 or 2022, or it can be Linux or it's any of other flavors also, it's fine. So basically VM means it is also a computer created either on the virtualization platform or on the cloud platform, and it will have an operating system in that. That is called as VM. Why we call it as virtual? Because this machine you cannot touch and feel. It is hosted on top of a computer. Means it's a computer within a computer. That is why we call it as VM. So these are the some words with respect to the server. Okay. Now let us understand what is on premises and cloud. See, on premises means it is the place or it is a physical place where you have hosted your servers. Say for example, you are already working in an organization, and each and every organization, they have their own servers in their own office premises called data center. So within an office they will have a separate place or a room. Inside that they will place all the servers, all the rackings, all the network and the storage devices will be available within that room, and that will have 24 bars of electricity with air conditioning and dedicated resources to manage it. That is called as on premises. Means the local location at the physical location at your premises, that is called as on premises. Next one is cloud. So cloud, I've already explained you. Cloud means it is a remote data center. Means on behalf of you, or you will not deploy the resources, but someone else will. They have already deployed the data centers in the remote place. Okay. For example, Azure, AWS or GCP, whoever is the vendor or the service provider, they have deployed their own data centers at multiple places of the world, and they will allow you to connect to the data center using the internet connection. That is called as cloud. What you will do, you will log into the portal using the internet with some username and password, then they will allow you to create the services that you are wanted. Okay, that is called as cloud. Then couple of more words like migration. Like migration is nothing but moving either the data or the service or a server from one place to another place. There are multiple ways of the types of migrations are there. Like physical to virtual. Like you have already have a physical servers. You want to promote or migrate that to the virtualization platform, or you want to move either physical or virtual to the cloud. That is called as migration. Anything that you move, either it is a data or a service or a server from one platform to another platform or from one place to another place, that is called as migration. Okay, and site means you already know site is nothing but it's a physical location. So these are all the couple of terminologies that you should be aware of before we get into further. Okay, and see here I am going to talk about more on the cloud, Azure cloud perspective. Okay, here also couple of terminologies are there, but they are specific to the cloud only. So the first and foremost thing is region. Region means it is one of the physical location or physical data center built up by the vendor or the service provider. Okay, so I was talking about the Azure. If you remember, during our first day, I was talking about the regions of Azure, and I told you there are 54 regions Microsoft has deployed across the globe. Correct? Huh? And each and every region means it is a physical data center. Okay, in multiple location of the world they have deployed, and further to that, I was also referring the availability zones. Say for example, they will deploy one region. Imagine Karnataka as a region. So what they will do to give more availability, like 99.9999%, means 6 digit of 9 SLA if they want to give, what they will do, they will tell us to deploy the resources using availability zone with load balancer. Means you create a load balancer, and behind the load balancer you try to keep minimum two application servers. Say for example, when you talk Karnataka as a region, it has got three different availability zones within Karnataka. So Karnataka is a single region, but within Karnataka it will have three more data centers. Okay, so let me take you to the one node so that it is easy for you to understand. See, I was referring, like say for example, Karnataka, right? So imagine Karnataka, there is a region. So what they will do, within Karnataka only, they will put the data center in three places. Okay, one is in Bangalore, another one is Mangalore, another one is Hubli. Okay, so Karnataka is a overall region. Under that, this Bangalore, Mangalore, and Hubli, they have availability zones. AZ1, AZ2, AZ3. Why they have put like this? And this each and every data center will be minimum 200 to 250 kilometer distance. Why they keep 200 to 250 kilometer distance is just to avoid any natural calamities or disaster. So, say for example, you have kept your application server 2 in Mangalore location. Due to tsunami, if Mangalore data center submerged also, you still have two regions, which is Bangalore and Hubballi. Okay, so between this Bangalore and Hubli, there is about 600 to 700 kilometer difference is there, and at any point in time, those two data center will not have any impact. If Bangalore you have kept, so Chennai is close by. Due to some cyclone or something, even if Bangalore got impacted, you still have Hubli. So that is why Microsoft will give you 99% of the SLA is 99.9999% as SLA. They will ask you to put the application servers under the load balancer. So create a load balancer, put one application server in Bangalore, another one is in Mangalore, third one is in Hubli, and Here you see, even if something goes wrong for the Bangalore location, you have Mangalore and Hubli, so that you will get the data center redundancy. Even the entire data center goes down also, you still have another two data center, and the application will be always up and running. This is what they will give 99.9999% of the SLA. Okay, I think this is clear. The region means overall, altogether, including three data center, we will call it as region, that is Karnataka. And Bangalore, Mangalore, Hubballi, those are the availability zones. Okay, so let me go back to the slide then. Then availability set is also there. Okay, there is another concept called availability set. This availability set means within the same data center. So I was referring the Karnataka here. Okay, so if I take Bangalore, within Bangalore there are multiple, in the same building only, multiple racks are there. This is rack 1, this is rack 2. What they will do, if you don't want physical data center redundancy, because that is little expensive, if you want a cheaper solution, what they will do, don't keep both the servers in the single rack, keep it in the two different racks. You keep one server here and one server here. Okay, both the racks are having the separate internet network connectivity, separate electricity connectivity, okay, and separate air conditioning connectivity, so that due to some power failure, if rack 1 went off, or due to some power fire accident, even the rack 1 completely burned also, you still have the another rack in the another set of another place in the within the data center, they will that server will be up and running. So this is hardware redundancy, means do not keep both the servers in the same hardware. If power failure happens, both will go down. So to ensure you have better availability, split the servers into two different racks, hardware at the data center, so that they are isolated with the electricity, network, and the air conditioning system. Okay, so this will give you the hardware redundancy, that is called as availability set. Availability set. So this is availability zone, this is AZ, this is availability zone. Okay, I think this is clear now. Is it clear, guys? Now upscaling and downscaling. So you already have a server or a VM built with 2 CPU, 4 GB memory, and now every day you are getting more than 90% usage, and you are getting a ticket. So your business will tell you, I'm getting a lot of tickets and it is also impacting my business. It is very slow. Kindly increase the capacity to, instead of 2 CPU, make it 8 CPU. Instead of 4 GB, make it 16 GB memory. Then that is called as upscaling. Upscaling is nothing but increasing the configuration of the VM or the server or the instance. Downscaling means you have enough capacity. You have deployed initially, you thought the business will grow super high, so lot many users will access. Then you have planned, like 8 CPU, 16 GB memory. But after 6 months or 7 months, you notice that it is not even used 50%, and you are unnecessarily paying extra money to the cloud provider. Then you thought of reducing that to 4 CPU and 8 GB memory. So 50% of the cost you can reduce like that. That is called as downsizing. And snoozing. Snoozing means shutting down the computer or deallocating the computer. I should not say shut down. Shut down means from the operating system level. When I say deallocate from the data center rack, see, there are two things when I talk about snoozing. So, say for example, when you log into the, shutdown means what? Means within the operating system, within the OS. Deallocation means what? Deallocation means removing the operating system from the rack. See what happens when you shut down from the operating system at the data center, still that VM will be there in the hardware. But when you say deallocated at the data center, what happens? That hardware will be free enough. So the operating system will be removed from that hardware, store it in the virtual hard disk somewhere in the storage account, okay, and that hardware will become free, and someone else will leverage that hardware for his usage. That is why we call it as a tenanting system. When you don't use the hardware, someone else will use that hardware. Like we have our house, we give for rent. If one person is vacated, what we will do, we will bring some other tenant. So as soon as the vacancy is there, vacant is there, house vacant is there, then definitely some new tenant will come and he will make use of it. The same applicable there. So deallocating the server during the off business hour, that is called as snoozing. Snoozing is nothing but deallocating the server during the off business hours or whenever you don't need the server to be online, so that you can cut the cost. That is called as snoozing. Okay. Then snapshots. Snapshot is a backup method, in fact. If you want to take the as is status of the VM, you can go to the disk and take the snapshots. So that capture the current level of the computer or the server. Whatever configuration, whatever settings, whatever status was there, that will be captured. And this is a pretty faster way of taking the backup, guys. Snapshot means it will happen within 1 or 2 minutes. But if you trigger the backup, it will take minimum 45 minutes to 2 hours and 3 hours, depend upon the size of the virtual machine. If the virtual machine has a bigger size like petabytes or terabytes of storage, then obviously it will take minimum 8 or 10 hours, we have seen. Okay, your bigger ECC system will be there, right? They will always take minimum 8 to 10 hours. That depends on how big the data you have in the database server. So but snapshot is a quicker way. Then primary region. See, normally when we deploy the business, our business will normally have primary and secondary region. But when you are solutioning when you are planning for a solution in the real time, your solution should have enough availability, performance based, everything it should include. So that's why the customer, the primary region, say for example, your customer is based of UK, their primary region could be your Western Europe, okay, and second region could be your Northern Europe. So what they will do, they will deploy all the primary workloads, production workloads in the Western Europe. They will leverage it, and they wanted to ensure if something goes wrong for the entire Western Europe data center, I should have the backup or the DR for my critical workloads. What they will do, they will synchronize all their critical workload. One copy will be sitting in the Northern Europe also. That is called as primary and the disaster regions. Primary region means where you have deployed all your workloads, physical current production workloads. And secondary region means you will retain a copy of the critical workloads, means server, storage, everything in the secondary region. That is called as DR region. If something goes wrong for the Western Europe, maybe fire up or tsunami, whatever happens, then we can call out the DR or we can use the application from the secondary region or from the DR region. That is primary in the secondary region. Okay. Now let us get into the actual topics, the theory. Those are all the terminologies I wanted to make you understand. Now let us talk about the virtual machine. So virtual machine means we call it as a VM. In the virtual environment, in server will be called as a VM. Okay, that VM means that is a computer within a computer. We will create a computer within a computer, but that works as an isolated, means it does not have any correlation with other servers, but it will have the connectivity. But if you shut down that one VM, that only one VM will be shutting down, not the others. Okay, that is called as virtual machine, and it will have an operating system, CPU, memory, storage, everything it will have. That is called as virtual machine. Why we call it as virtual machine? Because we are going to create that in a virtual environment. I told you in the day one when I did the demo, I have explained you how the traditional data center operation works, like physical location. You had a physical data center. Then to reduce the burden, to reduce a lot of challenges, then we bought into virtualization. So virtualization means a bigger hardware, a bigger capacity or configured computer will be there. We will install the virtualization software on top of it. Either it is a type 1 or type 2 hypervisor. Okay. Then we will create the virtual machine within the computer, means computer within the computer, that is called as virtualization. So there are two types of hypervisors. One is type 1, another one is type 2. Okay. Type 1 we will call it as bare metal, which is that hypervisor itself is an operating system, means you will install that hypervisor as an operating system. Then it will allow you to control the hardware. You can create the virtual machines and you can create whatever configuration you require, that can be handled. But type 2 hypervisor, it is used in the institutes and educational departments and lab environments, that runs on top of an operating system. You are already aware of it, means you already have a Windows 10, you can install this VMware workstation and use your laptop or desktop configuration, and you can create the VMs out of it. So type 1 is the industry standard. Everywhere if you go to the work, right, every companies, they will use type 1 hypervisor. Type 2 can be used at the lab. Whatever softwares we will give you for practice and you will install in your laptop, that is called as type 2, because that requires an operating system to install. It will work as an application, like you install Adobe for Weaver, or MS Excel, all these things, right? Like that it will work. So what is the benefits of virtualization? I already told you, resource efficiency means if you see that the CPU memory is not utilized much, you can reduce the size of the VM. If you see that the CPU memory is not sufficient enough for this computer, you can go and increase as much as you wanted. But in case of physical, it is not like that, because you have bought as a physical thing that you cannot even reduce, or that you cannot even increase also. Okay, you have to live with that. So resource efficiency is very good in terms of virtualization, and easier management, like replacing the anything, like if any NIC card is the problem, then you can go and add a NIC card. But in case of physical, it is not like that. You have to order the NIC card from the vendor, wait for that to deliver, then you add it, then you install the driver. It is burden. Downtime. If you want to shut down a computer, just go to the console, shut down the server, increase the CPU memory. It will happen within 1 or 2 minutes. But imagine if it is a physical one. When we have to shut down, you have to remove it. Okay, you have to again fix it, then update the driver, then start it for the thing. So the downtime is more in terms of physical, but in terms of virtual, it is very less. And faster provisioning. You don't need to put the POs. You don't need to raise the invoices. Then a vendor should give all those difficulties you will not face in the virtualization environment. That's why people will move always towards the virtualization or the cloud than the physical world. Okay. Now, if I talk about the Microsoft, right, there are multiple types of virtual machines are there. Okay. The first one is general purpose. These kind of computers are less price. You can use however the way you want it. There are multiple series of things are there, and they will support any purposes that you wanted. Generic purpose. Okay. Then we also have this GPU or NVIDIA based VMs, where you need graphic requirement are there, gaming requirement are there. There you will use this GPU or NVIDIA kind of virtual machines. They are graphic oriented or gaming oriented CPUs will be there. Okay. So then high performance. So there are a couple of applications. Their performance like SAP applications. Okay, they need both CPU as well as memory high. So that kind of the situation you can go for the high performance involved virtual machines. Then memory optimize. Some some applications they need very little CPU, like 4 CPU is enough, but they need 128 GB of memory or 254 GB of memory. That cases we will go to the memory optimized computes. Then compute optimize. Compute optimize is nothing but CPU based things. Sometimes you need very less memory, 8 GB memory is enough, but CPUs they may need like 64 CPU or 128 CPU they may need it. So that time you can go with the compute optimized one. Then the last one is storage optimized. Sometimes what happens, you need lot of storage, but normal CPU memory is enough. Like maybe around 60 GB memory or 12 or 16 CPU is enough. But you need the storage like terabytes of or petabytes of storage. Maybe a kind of a data science or something, right? If you want to analyze some data out of it, or if you want to derive some pattern out of it, that time they will go with the storage optimized devices. But in cloud, when I say compute, it is only two things actually. When I say compute in the cloud, it is only CPU and memory. This is called as compute. Okay, only CPU and memory will be compute. That's all in the cloud. When you buy a computer or when you buy a deploy a server in cloud, they will charge you for the CPU and memory and license cost, license operating system license. So these three things will be coming, and they will give you 100 GB of 128 GB of C drive. Okay, so when somebody talks about the size of the VM, it will always go on the CPU and memory. Okay, they will not talk about the underlying hardware or underlying licenses, all those stuff. Okay, they will tell, okay, currently it is B2MS, say for example, currently it is B2MS, and they will tell increase the size to B4MS. That means it is family B. Okay, it's a B series machine with 2 CPU. Now they are telling you to go with B series with 4 CPU. This number is represents CPU only. And along with that, maybe it is CPU 4 means maybe you want 6 GB or 8 GB memory. Depend on that, you can deploy it. So basically, in the cloud, when somebody talks about compute, you consider it is only CPU and memory. Okay, and you see here the number of tiers are there, basic tiers, all the tiers are there, standard tier, all those things are the A series, D series, DV, and I have just given example actually, but there are n number of series are there, and every series will be keep on expiring, new versions will be coming. As soon as you get the new versions, the performance will be increased and the price will be reduced. Say for example, you have a machine called D2MSV1, example D2MSV1. It is a version 1. You are end up paying 1000 rupees per month. Then they will bring you D2MS V2 version 2. They may give you around 900 rupees, and the performance is pretty faster because that is the latest hardware. Okay, so like this every now and then the versions will be keep on upgrading or updating. Okay, so if I talk about the virtual machine disk, there are multiple types of disks will be there. Okay, I will anyway discuss about that later, but now I will talk about the limitations. So earlier, when the Azure started, at that time they were allowing only 1 terabyte of disk maximum. One disk can be, I mean, multiple disk can be added, but each disk should be of maximum 1 terabyte. Now, before this 2 4 years, 3 to 4 years, they were giving 1 terabyte to 4 terabyte. But now they are allowing you to have multiple disks. On each disk of maximum capacity 64 terabyte. If somebody asks you what is the maximum storage in TB can be used, you can tell it is 64 terabytes. Okay, and each and every disk we call it as virtual hard disk, VHDs. The disk in the Azure we call it as VHDs, virtual hard disks. because you cannot touch and feel. Na? It is somewhere else in the somewhere in the remote data center. Okay. Now this either a VM or a disk, they will support some certain IOPS and throughputs. It is very important to understand what is IOPS and what is throughputs. Since this IOPS is nothing but input output per second. I mean, how many read and write operations happens per second. That depends and that decides how faster or how efficient that computer is in terms of performance. IOPS, input output per seconds. Maximum number of writings and readings, how many number of readings and writings will a computer support? That is called as IOPS. And there is another concept is there, that is called as throughput. Throughput means per second how much data can be transacted or transferred, or that computer allows you to transfer per second. That is called as throughput. IOPS is nothing but read and write operations. Throughput means how much data can be transferred, that computer is capable of transferring the data per second. That is called as throughput. Okay, so these are all the things depends upon the size of the VM or the tier of the VM. You see here there are multiple types and tiers are there. You can have a look it later. Okay, so now you have understood virtual machine means what compute means what are all the different families like general purpose, NVIDIA, memory optimized, storage optimized, compute optimized, everything is there. And you already know how can you build the VM. Yesterday I shown you. But what are all the different ways of building the virtual machines in Azure? Azure support multiple ways of building the virtual machines. If you would like to build a VM from the Azure portal using user interface, go log in, create the VM. And they will also support PowerShell. If you are good at a PowerShell scripting, you can even log into PowerShell. Using PowerShell, you can log into subscription, you can deploy the resources. Azure even supports command line interface, CLIs. In Azure supports Terraform and many other automation tools also. Okay, JSON, all these things it will support. Okay. And there are two deployment models. People will ask you, what are the two deployment model? The first one is classic, another one is Azure RM. This is very important. And this classic is obsolete now. Now it is not in use. It is completely ramped down. Classic deployment module is not available. That was having a different portal. When the Azure resource management means RM came, right? That time they bought in a new portal and with all new deployment modules and all supported. Okay, so the current deployment model what we have in Azure is it is Azure RM, resource management or resource manager. Okay, so these are all the couple of background. Now if you want to know what are all your day-to-day operations with respect to the virtual machine. So with respect to the virtual machine, there are a lot many activities are there in your day-to-day work. So you may need to ask restart or a start or a stop of a virtual machine for to do some activity. Say for example, there is an application activity is there. So application team tells you I want to restart this server. Then what you have to do? You have to make sure whether that is related to any other database also. If it is database, you have to stop the database first and then restart the computer and then start the database again. Okay, like that you have to do start and stop operations. Snoozing, like after the business hour, if you don't want that VM to be running to avoid the cost, you can do snoozing. And if you see that there is some server, some performances leakage is happening, okay, even though you have enough capacity, you see that performance is not enough, then you can go inside the operating system and see what exactly is consuming more CPU and memory and do an analysis. And imaging, you already created a VM and you want to store that as is status, that is called as VM imaging. Then upscale and downscale, if you want to increase the VM compute or downsize the compute, you can do that also. And adding the new disk, increasing the or decreasing the disk size, all those things will be your day-to-day activities. Okay, and disk snapshots and activity logs. Like yesterday, I showed you activity logs. So who created the VM? What has happened in the last 24 hours? All those activities can be tracked in the activity log. And there is an other option called resource health check. So this place you will understand how healthy that compute is at the data center. So the data center related logs, if you want to see, you have to go to resource health check, and there Microsoft will tell you what is the problem, what are they doing, all this information. Say for example, a VM is running, you can see that it is in running, but you are not able to connect to that. And if you want to troubleshoot what is the problem, you have to go to resource health check, and there you have to see what is the problem, what exactly the problem. They will tell you there is some activity at the data center, kindly redeploy this compute. Redeploy means the computer will be moved from one physical rack to the another rack at the data center. As soon as you click on the redeployment in the data center, there is a copy option enables or movement option enables that virtual hard disk or the operating system will be moved from one rack to a different rack. Maybe they are doing some maintenance activity in that rack, and that is the reason we are moving it now here. They will give a notification and then they will start. So these are all the couple of VM related activities that we perform in our day-to-day operations. So with that, I think the overall theory of virtual machines we are done. Let me stop the recording and I'll take you questions.